Ladies and gentlemen, if you can take your seats, please.
Everyone, please put your phones on
We have some folding seats in the back if you guys need them.
This is just a beautiful site. So, first of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Gail Green. I am the chair of the St. Tammany DPAC. And on behalf of our DPAC fellow commissioners, I would like to welcome everybody here and thank you all for coming out on this Thursday night. This is phenomenal. Thank you so much. So it's great seeing everybody here. Quite a few faces I know and have seen before. And again, welcome. So we are going to get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to introduce our committee chair of our fundraising committee, Ms. Nancy Nelson, and she's going to give you just a brief description of things that St. Tammany DPAC is doing and maybe how they can serve some of you in your election and in your campaigns. I'm sorry, excuse me. Nancy.
So good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. I'm seeing all kinds of beautiful smiles, and I'm so happy that you are choosing to spend your Thursday evening with us. My name is Nancy Nelson. I'm the DPAC rep for District 12. For those who are in the Slidell area, that's Bouger, Belvedere, Bonavillage, Slidell Heights, and part of Lakewood. So if any of you are in those neighborhoods and you would be interested in doing precinct work, just let me know. And if you live in any district in St. Tammany Parish and you're interested in doing precinct work, just let us know. We're happy to have you aboard. I am also the fundraising chair for the St. Tammany DPAC. And as such, I would just want to remind you of two important events that we have coming up. Next Wednesday night is our regular Dine with the Dims dinner. It's held once a month, always on a Wednesday. The Wednesday may vary throughout the month, but you can always clarify that by looking on our official Facebook page. The monthly dinner is held at Dinesco's in Old Town Slidell on Cary Street from 5 o'clock to 9 p.m. You can come anytime you want, order anything you want off the menu, enjoy good food, good conversation with like-minded people, and at the end of the evening, Dinesco's donates a portion of their proceeds to St. Tammany DPAC. So if you feel like what we're doing is important and matters to the people of St. Tammany, please come out and support us at Dine with the Dims. The other important event that we have coming up is next month, August 26th. It is our third annual Kathleen Babineau Blanco Gala. A little bit different this year. We're going to have it on the other side of the parish. It's at the Louisiana Maritime Museum in Madisonville. So it's a beautiful setting, and all of the gala attendees get a free tour of the Maritime Museum. Obviously, it's a nautical theme. Blue is the color. Funny how that works out. So again, if you feel like what we're doing here in St. Tammany Parish matters and that we are helping the people of St. Tammany Parish, I hope that you will support us through our Dine with Dims. I hope that you will come to our gala in August. Our speaker for the gala is Mr. Voss. His name is Jackson Voss. He is with the Louisiana Alliance for Affordable Energy, a group that has advocated on behalf of citizens since the early 80s. Our special musical guest is a gentleman by the name of John Boutte. Some of you may know him if you are familiar with the show Treme. He sang the theme song. Very well respected and regarded musician in New Orleans as well as Europe. He just came back from a European tour, and his performance at our gala is going to be his homecoming performance, in that he has not performed on the North Shore since the COVID lockdowns. So this night is going to be an awesome night. It's going to be such a wonderful setting with awesome food and awesome music. And if you want to get your tickets tonight, Gail has you set up. She's ready to take your orders. And if you are a local business, or if you are a, I don't know, candidate running for office, you might want to see us tonight about tickets or even a table dinner. So I do look forward to seeing all of you at the dinner, and especially the gala. And with that, again, thank you so much for coming, and I will turn it back over to you.
All right, well, we're gonna jump right in with our presentation of our candidates, well, from our candidates. Just a couple of housekeeping. Each candidate gets 5 minutes to give their presentation, and then immediately after the candidate's presentation, there will be a 10-minute Q&A session.
Yes.
So we would like to kind of stick to that time frame if at all possible. But if it gets good, you may, provide a little favor. But all right, well, let's get started. And the first candidate is none other than Mr. Shawn Wilson, the gubernatorial candidate.
So.
I'm a timekeeper at 4 minutes.
Oh, the timekeeper. All right. And I'm gonna wave right back at you. So, good afternoon. I am excited to be with you all this evening, and this is a really good time to be outside of an office where I'm dialing for dollars on a daily basis. It's even more exciting that I see familiar faces, some that have participated with me at the June 10th event, and where I served as speaker. And then Noah Girl back there actually tweeted us, and I personally responded to her and said, I'm going to bring you a sign and a shirt. Little did she know that I was going to drive personally to deliver them. And I did that, had a wonderful ride, and shocked her because she lived way back in some little creek or cranny. I never thought I knew where I'd get, but I got there. So I'm excited to be with you all. Thanks you all for being here and coming to hear what we're talking about. I am Shawn Wilson, the bridge builder, the candidate, the unanimously endorsed Democratic candidate for governor, and I'm excited to be here on the North Shore where everyone thinks it's ruby red, but it's really not. There's a beautiful sea of blue happening, not just here, but all across the state of Louisiana. Just so that you know, I'm a native of New Orleans, so I didn't come too far. Although I do live in Lafayette now, and we have a little drive afterwards, but this is a big state, and I am proud of the work that we've been able to do all across your region. When you look at what's happened over the last 7.5 years of what this administration has done, given my 17-year history at the department, we have broken all kinds of records. When you hear people say roads and bridges are the worst they've ever been, remember, we inherited a system over the last several decades that was not where we wanted to be. But in my time as secretary, over 2,000 projects, 7,000 miles, several bridges, $5.5 billion. We have made a difference. If you go look at the widening of I-12, that started in this administration. I remember working with your Parish president, Pat Brister, on a discretionary grant that we collectively received $25 million to help jumpstart it. I wasn't a nice guy for her when I told her we didn't have the money because the previous administration didn't leave us any money. But I made a commitment that we would get it done. Go look at 3241, a 4-lane project that you've been paying for since 1990. When I started, zero money, zero plan, zero contractor. It's under construction today and fully funded. We got $50 million from the legislature from the BP settlement, and we found a way to deliver the balance of $180+ billion project. Go look at the bridge over the Bogafalaya. Right now, it's funded and under construction. We are delivering results when you look at 190 and what's happened. So I'm not giving you political speak. I'm giving you history of what I've done in your neighborhood as secretary. We are built to deliver if we have good leadership. You're looking at someone who's worked in Republican and Democratic administrations over the last 25 years. I'm a candidate that's got an undergraduate in planning, a master's in public administration, and a PhD in public policy. Either one of those alone won't make me unique, but collectively, It gives you someone that understands government and has worked with legislators, have worked with sheriffs, have worked with parish presidents to deliver things that matter for citizens. That is what this is really about. On the ballot this October, we've got a number of real issues. You should know and be proud that your candidate for governor has been leading the way on policies. When we started, back on March 6th when I announced, I was the only candidate that said maintain the Medicaid expansion. The only one. All of a sudden, everyone else starts to think it's a great idea and are now saying we need to do it. I'm the only candidate that said we needed to maintain the changes made to ITAP, to continue to put resources back in communities for public safety, for public education, for local law enforcement. Others are now saying, yes, we need to keep ITAP, even the candidates that campaigned against it. That is what leadership is about. We're right on policy, we've delivered, and we are going to continue to do that for the state of Louisiana. If we were Amazon, and we were looking for an executive, we'd go find somebody who's proven and talented. If we were Gail Benson wanting to find a new coach, I'm a way back to like I said I was going to do. If we want to find a new coach, we would go find someone with a record of success. We wouldn't go find someone who's talked about it. If you were a parent thinking about where you were going to go put your child in school, you're going to go somewhere where there's a leader and someone who's going to put their arms around and deliver results for your child to have a productive environment. That is what I'm asking you to do when it comes to voting for the next governor of Louisiana. The last thing I'm going to say, and she's going to wave at me again, is people are going to say this can't be done. I don't think any of you ever met Governor Bitter. I don't think you've met Governor Rispoli, and our state has not drastically changed in terms of our electorate. We still have a third of the state that are registered Democrats. Anyone who's going to be governor is going to need someone from the other party to do it. I'm not going to be a divider. I'm going to be someone that's going to build bridges and work together. I can do it with your help. We're building an organization. We are leading when it comes to small dollar donations and a grassroots effort. We're leading the leading Republican candidate by double digits. So I'm excited about those challenges. We're also within the margin of error in the early 30s in terms of the percentage of this campaign so far. And that's just the Republican and the Democrat. And you've got everybody else, the other three Republicans and other independents down in the single digits. There's a reason, because the numbers are saying we're ready for a change and we can deliver this. With your help, we can do it. Visit us online at wilsonforla.com. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on social media under that same handle. And at that website, you can donate. So thank you to those who have done that, because we've raised over $1 million thus far, and I've only been raising for 4 months. That ought to tell you something. When you go back to 2015 and look at what John Bell did this last quarter, he only raised $250,000. I love him to death, but we doubled the amount of money that he raised in 2015. So we've got momentum. We've got momentum. With your help, we can do it. Sign up to volunteer, sign up to donate, become a digital canvasser, which means you tweet out, you share everything that we share, because your friends are going to be our friends. We need your help to make that happen. So God bless you. I'm excited to be here, and she's going to wave the universal signature if I don't shut up. And I'm happy to take a couple of minutes of questions if that's in order, Madam Chair. I answer all your questions. That's wonderful. Yes, ma'am. What's your name?
Good afternoon. Ice Buchanan.
Nice to meet you, Ice.
I'm from here in Slidell. I'm a native New Orleanian as well.
From the West Bank?
I am.
Oh, where'd you go to high school?
John Eric's.
Okay. That's Jefferson Parish.
It is. I started in Elvis.
All right, I graduated from Boston. What used to be, it's no longer there. You know Mr. Grady passed.
I do.
All right, we be in person, so okay.
So I have 2 kids in college here. One is Southern, one is Dillon. Both my kids are planning to leave the state when they graduate. I'm an HR professional, and I know that the brain drain is real here. So how do we get our kids, educated kids to stay in the state? How do we attract jobs, industry to come back here? Because I have one who's a math major, applied math. She's leaving. The other one, biology, she's leaving. So how do we get those kids, address the real brain drain? Because Houston is, Atlanta's getting our kids, DC is, they're not staying here.
Yeah. Great question. And congratulations on having 2 kids in schools here in Louisiana. they're going to potentially leave because they're going to get a job that's going to pay them more than they're going to get here. Simple as that. It's not because the food is better. It's not because the fishing is better. It's certainly not because the football is better. It's because they're going to make more money at the end of the day. Until we address wages in our state, we're going to continue to see that rate rate. As long as we have the literacy rate we have in our state, companies are not going to come to attract those type of jobs that require those level of degrees and skill sets, because there's not going to be a workforce here to accommodate them. That is what you're seeing in North Carolina. That's what you're seeing in Texas. That's not what you're seeing here in Louisiana. And we've got to start by raising wages for everybody and not just some. We've got to start by attracting people and ensuring that we build an economy that people will want to be in. CNBC just released their report on the top states to do business. Louisiana was number, what? 48. And you know what they asked for? The business community said they're going to look at certain things like education, certain things like infrastructure. They're going to look at, do you have laws that discriminate against people? Does that sound familiar? Those are questions that they're going to say, we don't want to bring people to your state if our community and our citizens can't be safe, if they can't go to public school and learn, if they don't have a healthcare system that they can then rely on. And if you go back and read the articles that CNBC said, they're telling you the test answers. If we just do those things, it will happen. And that's what we've had for 8 years, and that's what I'm offering. Investments in healthcare, investments in early childhood education and education, addressing criminal justice and public safety, such that we are not letting the crimes happen, because we'd be investing in prevention and not just arresting people on the back of the end. And then we got to treat people with respect and dignity. You've got to not discriminate against anyone if you expect folks to come to Louisiana, which historically has been a state that did this and not a state that did that. And that's fundamentally who we are.
Thank you.
Madam Rep, how are you?
I'm great, and thank you for being in Slidell. And I never, ever want to put a candidate on the spot. However, and this is not the reason why I'm here, but it's just an opportunity I can't pass up. So I'm getting multiple calls and emails a day on, you know what, Highway 90 bridge. So please, can you tell us anything about it? I know it's not your position anymore.
It's not my position anymore, but the bridge has been funded and it's under construction. It will be under construction in the very near future. We've done some wonderful things on 190. When you see the super street that's there, in terms of the J-turns, it's actually making you safer and it's moving traffic more efficiently. When I was secretary, I actually had our research center at LSU do a study to tell us whether or not it's better for business. And the answer is yes, because you can move more cars into your business when you have an orderly transportation system. Here's the reality around infrastructure. The cost of infrastructure has gone up exponentially, and you're going to have to fund it. You're asking about the 190 bridges, not the Bogafalaya bridge. That's a whole different story. Let me give you that answer.
The Parish and the 90 bridge.
The pearl bridges, the string of pearls, yes. All right,
That's okay, I said it wrong initially.
Okay, so bridges are 85 plus years old. You know when we're gonna get new money for the first time in 34 years? Starting next year, you're only gonna get 150 million. Ask me how much money the Department of Transportation spent on bridges over the course of an annual year. You're talking $100+ million, 150 plus for that specific project versus the millions that we have to spend all across the state. Then there's this thing called the State Law for the Highway Priority Program that says you've got 9 districts. Each district has to have a fair share of the money. You're already getting a huge portion of the money because you've got almost $250 million being spent on I-12. You've got $200+ million being spent on 3241. You've got the $30 million on the Bogafalaya Bridge. And we still have other hurdles that are Coast Guard issues in terms of the height of the bridge. The truth is that bridge has been closed for over a year because it's disproportionately more expensive for us to maintain that kind of bridge. And we just don't have the resources anymore. We patched it and maintained it as long as we possibly could. Here's the other reality. On a daily basis, you've got about 10,000 cars a day traveling on that bridge across that stretch going to Mississippi or coming back to Louisiana. It is not a route that we would advise you to go on for evacuation. You've heard the article, they said, oh, it's an evacuation. Every road's an evacuation route when you're trying to get out. But in the middle of a hurricane, I don't want you to go east or west. You need to go north. That's how you stay safe. That is the reasonable alternative. We've worked to try and lower those costs, but until we really invest in infrastructure, guess what? We're only going to be able to get what we pay for and get what we have money for. So the bridges are important, but in the big scheme of things, the detour route is not ideal, but it's less than 20 miles to get from one side of that bridge to the other when you come up to I-10. And that bridge on I-10 is in much better shape. It's going to have much more traffic and capacity. And we have billions of dollars of backlog here in the state of Louisiana. We got over 12,000 bridges. 12,000. You're talking about 5 bridges, 3 of which are closed for maintenance out of the 12,000 bridges. And it's a matter of priorities. And so eventually it will get done. Will it get done tomorrow? I can't make you that promise. But the fact is, we don't have enough money to do all that needs to be done. And we follow the law in terms of the priorities at which we set them, because at the Department of Transportation, I don't set those priorities, I implement them. The legislature votes on the highway priority program, the legislature appropriates money, the legislature is who we go to. And I'm the guy that when I became secretary, I started tweeting out every time a bridge was closed. And there's a particular candidate from the North Shore, there are 3 of them, so I'm not going to tell you which one, actually told me, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, no, my job is about public safety. I want to educate the public. And I got criticized and ridiculed because I tweeted out when bridges were being closed. And every year I was secretary, I would go say, our number one issue is to take care of what we built, not to go build something new, not to go build a new project or a brand new bridge if I've got bridges that are falling apart. That was what my record shows over the 7+ years that I was secretary. Check the record. That's factual. Brett, good answer for you?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for being here too. Next question. Use my 2 minutes wisely.
I was just wondering how much interaction you've had with the legislature.
Oh, I've had tremendous interaction. I'm so excited to hear that your gala is named after Kathleen Babin of Blanco, because she was a personal friend and mentor. She came to my son's baby shower. She came to my wedding. I worked for her husband. I worked for her when she was lieutenant governor. When she became governor, I was a deputy legislative director. And I worked with the legislature on a regular basis. And then I became confidential assistant during her tenure with the Secretary of Transportation. And guess what my number one job was? Working with the legislature. I also worked with our congressional delegation. And so I have a tremendous amount of experience in dealing with the legislature, even a conservative legislature like we've had for these last 2 terms. I remember when it was under a Democratic leadership, and I worked with them, and I remember when they were under Republican leadership. And we've been very successful. In fact, I was the most popular secretary. I was the one that everybody liked until I said I was running for governor. Some of them still like me. And I would venture to ask the rep. I'm always going to be the guy that's going to have a real frank and honest conversation and be respectful, because everybody needs to be successful. When I worked for Governor Jindal, he needed to be successful. I didn't agree with him politically, but he needed to be successful. And my job in transportation was to be successful. So I've got a wonderful history of working with the legislature, and I will use that when I get to be governor, because you're going to have to work with them to get things done. That is what being a bridge builder is really about. Literally and figuratively building bridges.
I know they can be difficult.
Yeah, they can. And governors can be difficult too. And I'm gonna ask this nice lady to give me a few more minutes, because we got a couple of questions that I'm gonna be short-winded, I promise.
Are you all set for when they start asking you about the abortion issue?
Yeah,
About the
that's
state
what I
law?
wanted to do.
This thing that's happening now with Louisiana being named as one of those places that, I think is something big. The other thing is, our school kids and their books.
Yep.
And stuff like that, that's another thing. And, young people healthcare, I think it's another issue that's coming up. Are you all set
Yes.
to be able to deliver on
Yes.
that, you know?
Deliver on that
Well,
depends on the legislature
that's true.
and our ability to work together. Because remember, this is a state government and we've got to work together. Abortion is not the most important issue in this election, believe it or not. It's probably number 4, number 5. Now, people use that as a litmus test because it's the one thing that they could divide us on. I will challenge you to say, you know what? Let's focus on what we agree on, because if we did that, we'd be so busy getting stuff
But then
done.
we're not agreeing on, we're half citizens then, the
Well,
women of
well,
this,
let
of
me
this
let me
state.
get to you on, let me answer the question on that issue. See why we needed more time? So my point is, if we can find things that we agree on, we can get together. But here's where we are on this issue. Here's where I am. 2/3 of Louisiana and just about every poll is going to tell you that they're pro-life with exceptions. I think it was unfortunate that the legislature chose not to make exceptions, and exceptions are much greater than life of the mother, rape, and incest. Those are fundamentals, but there are other reasons for that issue. Now, I am never going to have a baby. I'm married to a woman, and we had difficulty having kids. And guess what? For her and I, our personal choice is our choice, and we have chosen to practice what our faith teaches us. In government, it's not the government's place to legislate your care or anyone else's care, because we don't intervene with your diabetes, your cancer, we don't intervene with your schizophrenia, your obesity, your depression. We let medical professionals make those decisions. And that's the way it ought to be. And you ought to be able to separate yourself, because I'm not running to be your pastor. I'm not running to be your minister. I'm running to be your governor. And your governor has to govern for everyone. And then when you look at those issues that I just talked about with CNBC, they look at that issue of choice and decide, do I want to go to a state where you have these extreme trigger laws? That's going to be a business decision, because they know a percentage of their employees are going to be women. And it's not all going to be what we want it to be here in Louisiana. And so, listen, me and my wife might make a decision to accept whatever conditions, because we're in a position and that's our choice to make that decision. It ought not be mandated to you to make those decisions. And that is a very narrow choice. It is a very narrow path. We've got over 4 million opinions on what we ought to be doing on this thing called life and choice. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be pro-life and pro-choice at the same time. No one that I've ever met is pro-abortion. No one I've ever met is pro-abortion. And so the reality is, let's be humans. Let's let the professionals make decisions. I'm not comfortable with the legislature as it's comprised today or ever making those decisions that I want to make with my doctors, because as a man, I have that right and opportunity, and I think everybody should. No different than everybody ought to be able to pick whatever book up they want, or that their parents make those decisions. I've got 2 grandkids. When we take them to the library, I don't care what else is in the library, because I'm going to be right there with them checking books out. I'm not going to hold a librarian accountable. I'm not going to hold a teacher accountable to be the moral compass for my kids and my family. That's got to be my decision. Go back to the fundamental principle of, can you build bridges and work together? Not if I'm going to tell you what you can't do. The schizophrenia and the whiplash of parent rights, it's hilarious. It's so silly. It's so inconsistent that over on this issue, we're going to fight for your right. Over here, you don't have a right. You can't have it both ways. And by the way, I've worked for every governor from Foster, Blanco, Jindal, Edwards. I've known the other Edwards personally. I've known and got to engage with Romer. I remember meeting Treen. All of those folks, not one of them, I will suggest to you, ever had to make a decision about library books as governor. It doesn't happen. But that is the argument that some people want to make, that that's the most important issue. Let's not be distracted on these culture wars, because none of that is going to make us safer. It's going to educate our children. In fact, it will dumb them down.
Yes.
And it's not going to grow an economy. It's going to shrink the economy, because the business community that we rely on to create jobs are going to pay attention to that. And it's not the ones that are here. It's the ones that we want to come here. That is where you have the fundamental difference. So that's where I am on books. I think I covered all your issues, did I? All right, I'm going to play by the rules. Unless you give me one more question. One more question. I love answering questions. That's the educator part of my life. My wife's an assistant principal. My daughter's a social worker. As I said, I've got a PhD, so I'm a learning kind of guy. So I don't mind asking and engaging in questions. That's the best way we learn things. So one last question. Don't make me have beg for that. Nobody gives me a question. All right.
I'll be the token millennial.
All right.
So
We need you to help pay for Social Security. You do. You do.
Yeah. So, I mean, RC has a horrible history of mass incarceration. And so we
Absolutely.
recently decided that we're gonna have a medical marijuana regime where someone has to pay $130 to one doctor to read a note from another doctor, then go to a pharmacy and buy a plant in cash that has been used as an excuse to incarcerate an inordinate amount of people and facilitate a system like prison labor. So what can you as a governor do to, one, kind of address the hypocrisy within the medical marijuana community? Because like I don't need a prescription for a martini, and like the effect is the same. And
Yeah.
so like what can we do for one, families who have been victims of this war on drugs, and two, how can we amend our marijuana policies to be more cognizant of the injustice that we carry?
That's why I love millennials. So, great question. One, I will tell you, martini and marijuana is slightly different because one's out of your system in time, and there are real implications for safety-sensitive positions when it comes to marijuana. That's just a fact. So I've had the unfortunate circumstance of terminating someone because they had marijuana in their system, but I also know I have other employees who come drunk, and so there's some inconsistency there, but there is a little fundamental difference. We have to be thoughtful and embrace science because if it makes you more comfortable and healthier and safer, we ought to be doing it. But we've got to do it in a way that it does not become a financial windfall that causes us to use people more. It's a very complex question in terms of how do you deal with that in the criminal justice system. Because of the history of our laws and where we've come from and what that means when we change those laws and implement them. I've learned in public policy that implementation is much more critical. And so you can have a great policy with bad implementation, you got a problem. You can have a bad policy with good implementation, you still have a problem. So implementation and being right on policy is absolutely critical. I will tell you as a candidate, I am not ready to say I support medical marijuana, recreational marijuana. I absolutely support medical marijuana. And I also support the decriminalization of marijuana and have to deal with that in a market, and the market is going to tell us what that means for our workforce. And when you have the type of workforce we have, you're going to have a large number of safety-sensitive areas where if you're in the oil and gas industry, or if you're welding, if you want to really invest in the clean and green energy of wind and hydrogen, you're going to have some real safety-sensitive positions where the two don't necessarily reconcile. And so that's where we're going to have to grapple with. As a governor, I will be always open to science. I will be open to best practices and see what matters. And then I will also be thoughtful in terms of what we have to do on criminal justice to make sure that we don't just continue to criminalize things that's no longer as criminal. You can go to just about any major city and probably get as much of a high just walking downtown that you could ever get. I've been told that. I don't know that. The reality is we can't continue to lock people up for those things that are no longer a problem because we're paying for it on the back end and it's not financially sustainable, which is why we have to maintain the criminal reform, the criminal justice reforms that we have put in place and invest on the front end with things like treatment, invest in things like reentry, invest in behavioral and mental support services to make sure that we address it. That was an issue I didn't get a chance to answer before. We have to figure out how to help our youth in a much more sustainable and smart way when they start to have these choices of a more open environment when it comes to marijuana use. Because if they're dealing with mental issues or juvenile issues or challenges growing up and they face this environment of a more open marijuana spot, we need to be thoughtful about what that's going to mean for them transitioning into that. So, that's a very complex issue. It's a lot of different moving parts, and it's not going to happen overnight. If you think about it, the horrible system we have of incarceration and recycling folks and building and financing our criminal justice system off of those types of things, it didn't happen overnight. So you're not going to get out of it overnight. You just have to be thoughtful, and you have to have some stick-to-itness, if that's such a thing. Every time we make an improvement, we want to undo it in 4 years or 8 years and not give it time to really work when you're looking to challenge and fix a decades-old problem. We saw it with transportation. You didn't fund transportation for the last 30 years. You've seen the system continually degrade, and then there are those who think the moment I'm secretary, you're supposed to turn it all around and not give me any extra money. Well, no, it's not going to be that quick. Things are the way they are because they were allowed to get that way over generations of people and leaders. We're not going to get out of most of our public problems overnight. And I'm going to be the candidate that's going to be honest and stand up to say, if you're expecting me to turn around public education in 2 years just by holding children at the 3rd grade level, think again, because that's not going to work. We're going to wait till the 3rd grade to start to remediate them when we ought to be remediating them now in the 1st grade and then in the 2nd grade. So in 2025, when the 3rd grade comes, they can read, as opposed to waiting until we stop them all. That's just an example of the thoughtfulness that I will give you as a governor and the honesty and the transparency around what you can expect to deliver. One more question. Thank you all so much. I'm looking forward to being here and continuing some dialogue.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, our next candidate is for Secretary of State, Gwen Greenup. Welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Gwen Greenup, and I am the People's Candidate for Louisiana Secretary of State. I believe that our right to choose what's best for our future, our family, our community, and our state is what truly makes Louisiana great. And that is the reason that I am running for Secretary of State, because we, as the citizens of Louisiana, we deserve to have the right to make choices for our community, our families, our future, the things that we are all here asking questions about tonight. And it's good to hear people wanting to participate in our government, but more importantly, I'm running because I want to see more participation in our elections. When I first ran for Secretary of State, it was because we had nearly 3 million registered voters, and now we are actually up to 3 million. But we have 3 million registered voters, but I'm still seeing the same thing. Less than 15% of the voters that are registered in our state are actually participating in our elections. And that means that 1.5 million Louisianians are making decisions for 4.6 million Louisianians. And that is very concerning. That is the reason why we see some of the voter apathy in our state. And this is not just in Louisiana, but this is a nationwide problem. And it doesn't add to it when we have issues where people are attacking our elections, where our elections are questionable, and where trust has been lost in our Secretary of State's office. Well, for the past 20 years, I have spent my entire career serving and protecting the rights of the people and businesses of Louisiana. I've done that as a business owner. I've done that as an accountant, and now I'm doing that as an attorney. And throughout that time that I have been in various roles in our court system, I was the director of a court in Baton Rouge, one of the largest courts in our state. I created access by putting the first DMV ever inside of a court in our state. And by doing that, that gave defendants who were having their driver's license suspensions lifted the opportunity to go on the 3rd floor of the courthouse and get their licenses reinstated. What else did that do? That opened them up to the ability to register to vote at the same time. So I know what access can do. And in a lot of places in our Secretary of State's office, the access that voters need and voters feel they should have, it's stifled. That's another reason I'm running. As we look at this position, it can do more. It does more than just handle our elections. This position works with our clerks of court. This position also has to have a budget in place that can sustain getting new voting machines. We were promised voting machines 4 years ago. We still don't have it. But what we do have is we have arguments at the legislature about who's gonna pay for it. Well, I'm here to tell you, I'm an accountant. I have over 20 years of experience as an accountant that I can apply to this office to ensure that we have a budget that can get the funding through the door to get these voting machines funded, but more importantly, to get them operational in our Secretary of State's office. This is important because right now we are using voting machines that are over 25 years old. And if many of you had a computer right now that was over 25 years old, let's think about what it would be doing. It needs upgrades. Without the upgrades, you cannot protect that system. Without the upgrades that the clerks of courts offices need on their computers, you can't protect that system. You know, it's not if, but when our elections will get attacked. Louisiana has had a history of having secure elections. People have had integrity in our elections, but now that trust is lost. How do I know that? Because there are 4 Republicans that are running in this position to replace the current Secretary of State, who has let us know that he's retiring because he can no longer do the position. So when we look at the things that we're seeing, it's not just me running. But 4 years ago, I told you guys that this would be happening, that we would see widespread voter fraud allegations in our elections, that we would not have voting machines today. Well, I'm not here to tell you what I'm going to do in the next 4 years. I'm here to tell you what I have done. And I've done it before. I've created access in the courts. I have a law firm with 10 locations across the state to create access for people who need legal representation. And now I'm ready to do the same thing with our Secretary of State's office. So I'm going to end it right here. I'm going to open it up for questions and just jump in. Let's get involved and learn more about what this office can do and what I will do as our next Secretary of State. Thank you.
Talk about paper ballots.
Sure. So the voting machines that I am proposing are the same ones I proposed 4 years ago. We saw the way those voting machines worked in Georgia. Those voting machines allow you to make a vote if you have a paper ballot that prints out that shows you how you voted. So you can have confidence that the vote that you cast is the vote that's counted. But it also does something more unique. It prints out an audit trail that can be used. Our current voting machines don't have that. That audit trail is similar to a paper ballot. We can use that to audit our voting machines after elections. And we wouldn't have to worry about doing audits every now and then. We can actually do that before and after every election. Right now, they are renting voting machines that allow them to do that. But again, we still don't have voting machines. Paper ballots are, in this state, are to be used in case you meet certain qualifications. You have to meet the age qualifications or have some type of disability or medical issue that would qualify you, or you would have to be out of town on the day of the election. Without that, you cannot use a paper ballot in this state. There are other states that allow people to use paper ballot regardless. So in this state, these things are controlled by our legislature. Again, when we look at the Secretary of State's office, we have to look at also the people we're electing. So if we want things to change where everybody will be able to vote, some people like the idea of automatic voter registration. Some people like the idea of allowing people, when they are not able to vote, we have a provisional ballot. We do have that, where if you are, your name, you've been deemed inactive, or you're not sure where your voting precinct is, you can vote if you believe that to be your voting precinct, and you show up for an election, you can vote at that precinct, and the Secretary of State's office, with your local clerk support, your Secretary of State's office will verify that ballot, that provisional ballot, that you are in the correct
district and you are voting in the election legally. And that is one of the reasons I'm running, to protect every eligible Louisiana citizen's right to vote. Without these security measures in place, we cannot protect our elections. We cannot continue to have voter trust in and integrity in our election system. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I can attest to those Atlanta boxes because I was there for 18 years, so I've been back for 3 years. And I was shocked when I voted here. I was like, the level of security here is scary compared to Atlanta. Like their boxes, you place your ID into the ballot box and it scans you. And like you said, you get a ticket. It's extremely secure. Versus here, I was shocked. I was like, Louisiana, what are you doing? But now I know
Absolutely.
what we're not doing.
Absolutely. These are things that are concerns. Some of the candidates that are running right now, like I said, they're running because they don't have confidence. The more candidates that are running, they don't have what one of them does because she works in the office. But the other three do not have confidence in our elections because they believe that we need more protocols in place. As an accountant, we need internal controls in place that will eliminate what you're talking about. The things that we don't think about because we're in Louisiana. So if you're used to doing something a certain way, you might think that it's a good thing. I'll give you an example. I was in the director of the court. I came in. Someone else was in that place for 20 years. They were doing things a certain way. I noticed a lot of duplication. I noticed that internal controls weren't in place with some things. Someone ended up staying in jail too long, all because of one suggestion I made that we changed. Well, that was done under a previous administration, but people couldn't see what I was talking about until it happened. And then they were like, yeah, the previous administration could have put that in place and that would have protected the worker. The worker got blamed, but it was actually where the person who was responsible for that department could have put that internal control in place to protect them. I put that internal control in place to protect the people who were working under me, the people I was supervising, the people in my department. This is something that a Secretary of State has to do. Our current Secretary of State is not an attorney. Do you have to be an attorney to be Secretary of State? Absolutely not. You just have to be a registered voter, 25 and older, the same thing, the same qualifications you have to be governor are the same qualifications you have to be to be Secretary of State. But should we have someone in there that knows law? Yes, we should. Why? Because we have to protect voting rights. And if we can look at Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, that is what we're looking at history in the making right now, where we're looking at should people be allowed to have an extra congressional seat on the basis of race. Not on the basis of race, it's on the basis of not having voting rights. Voting rights denigrated. Okay. So we can easily look at these things in a different way if we're not well versed on the law. But if we have a Secretary of State that is well versed on the law, we can have more voter education. We can have people trained on how to use the voting machines because those voting machines can come out to events like this. We can have a voting machine up here today. I can say if you're training you on how to use it. I can also be here showing you the new technologies that are available and that are being used in other states. And as we can see, these things are needed because our election system is now outdated. And some of the policies and procedures that are in place are outdated as well. These are all things that I'm hoping I can implement to quench the curiosity as well as the concerns of the people who are running for this seat and the people of Louisiana. Any more questions?
You think about us leaving the area system.
leaving the ERIC system opens us up, it makes us more vulnerable. I believe in partnerships. I would say the more organizations that you are a part of, the more information that you are privy to, the more recommendations that you have, that is better for anyone. The Bible even says that there is wisdom in a multitude of counsel. Does that mean we have to do everything that they tell us? No. We can look at those things. We can make decisions based on the needs of our state. But having that information that comes from being a part of those organizations and a part of that system, that is very intricate to our protecting our elections. I am a licensed title insurance agent, and so my law firm does law and title. And title insurance agencies are required to implement cybersecurity. If that doesn't happen, then your data, as we can see with the latest data breach, your data will be all over the place. And we would get fined $1 million for a data breach. So the bank will get fined $1 million for a data breach that was done in my law firm, my title company. So when we look at that, these are things that attorneys would look at. If I was in the hot seat, they would ask me, what did you do to prevent this? If I can't tell them I did cybersecurity training, if I can't tell them I went with organizations that are well versed in cybersecurity, or that I implemented cybersecurity controls in my office, but this just happened, it was outside of my control, that's when that fine comes. That's what we're looking at with our elections. It's not if, but when. Thank you.
I am commissioner, and when COVID came around, a lot of commissioners left. And I understand why. I had to take the equipment in there and they had to gown up, mask up, glove up, put things on their fingers. I was scared to work there and I didn't have the health conditions that a lot of our commissioners had. Now we're short. I don't know about the statewide, but in St. Tammany, we are short commissioners. So clerk employees are being forced to work the election. I've reached out to some ex-commissioners to find out why they're not working, and there are various things, but one of them is the pay. And I know that you can't commit to an increase in pay for the commissioners until you get in. But when you're looking at 4 to 6 hours of training, and then 12 to 15 hours of polls, the 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours is not paid. Then you're looking at $200 for up to 14 to 16 hours to work. That's not a lot of money. And then the outreach to get commissioners. So we can talk about the machines, and that's great. We need the machines, but we need the seat on the ground that's going to run these elections. So I think when you're looking at something, you have to look at it as a whole. So when you get in, I'm going to change that word. Will you commit to looking at that to better the working environment for the commissioners? One, they get breaks. They have to eat at their little table. It's a lot for them. It's a lot for them.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience. I've had that same experience as a deputy clerk working in East Louisiana Parish. I was the person handling elections. So I am used to the same experience that you are used to, of not being able to leave that room while you're counting the ballots and things like that. You'll be in there all day. I do agree with that. I am a basketball and football high school referee. We too have those same issues. We get out there on the field and we have to be there an hour before the game. It's 5 hours of our time that we're out there. We're doing extra training. We have to take tests. We have to go to training on Saturday. We have to go to rules training on Tuesday. I'm doing all that while running for Secretary of State. These are things that people don't see, that they see us on the field for those 2 hours that night on Friday night or at the basketball game for 2 hours. but they don't see all the things that we do around that. We have had strikes, we have asked for a raise, and these are things that I'm familiar with. These are everyday things that people ask for. But if any of you have ever worked elections, commissioners are the worst treated people in elections. And they get a lot of flack here on people. But they have a lot of work to do, and it is voluntary. So I do think the commissioners deserve a raise, especially when you have to sit at little fire stations and little places where some places don't even have a bathroom. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, so we are talking about people who cannot leave because they have to sit there again. That's our physical infrastructure and protect those voting machines. So I plan to work with our clerk support and our registers of voters to not only train commissioners and encourage statewide uniform training, also protect our commissioners from attacks and make sure that they're well versed in the law so people won't feel intimidated by commissioners, but also where commissioners don't feel intimidated by people coming in to vote. And I do want to get the board commissioners, having personally done that myself as a deputy clerk. And I will work with commissioners to see what you guys are proposing out in our survey. That's something that I do love to consulting work. And I will have a survey to see what you guys want and what you things that you think needs improving to our clerk support and our registered voters. Just to see. I don't know everything, but I will do everything that I can do to make our Secretary of State office, our commissioners' experience, our clerk support, registered voters' experience better, and to make our elections better and get more participation. And I will go, please speak, we'll go into schools and recruit from our middle schools up. I will put training programs in place to teach them about voting elections. We will be bringing voting machines to the schools for them to hold actual elections so they can see what it's like to vote. All of these things can be done with that voter outreach and engagement division. It's not being used, but I am going to spread the wings of that office, and you guys are gonna watch it fly under my administration. I'll be doing that, and I'll be encouraging the people under me to do that, and I'll also be encouraging you all to work with me to make this a better Louisiana. Thank you.
All right, our next candidate is with the St. Tammany Parish Council for District 7, Mr. Keith McFarland.
You will not have to do the 50 pathways today. Good evening, everyone. My name is Keith McFarland, and I am running for Parish Councilman District 7. Now, what I'm going to talk about is what everybody's been talking about to me. I've been going to the Trace in Mandeville on Saturdays. I've been going to Walmarts and all these other places. And it's mostly women that come up to me, and I'll tell them what I'm planning on doing and what I'm planning on running for, and they'll say, you know what? I have this household kitchen sink tabletop issue. I said, what's that? My light, out on the poles, the lights out. And she said she's been trying to get somebody to get the lights on the lights on the streets turned on. I said, I'll see what I can do. Give me your phone number and everything. So she gave me a phone number, and I called Clico. Clico, I'm learning how to do all of this now that I'm running for. So I called Clico, and Clico said, go and give me the number off the pole. There's a number on the pole that I didn't know anything about. So she either give me the address or give me the number off the pole. So I went back, got the address and the numbers off the pole, and I called them back. They give us 7 days. 7 days, they came out and they fixed it within 7 days period. Another issue they were talking about is which a lot of people it applies to a lot of people, the grass that grows up along the ditches and it covers some of the sign, they wanted that taken care of. And I'm trying to call, who do I call for this? So I'm trying to call the district, the councilman for District 7, and I'm trying to call Paul Collins. Sent priority mail. I even went looking for his office. I didn't get a return phone call. My priority mail was delivered, but it was never answered. I emailed. So that's one reason why I'm running, because of accessibility. People want access to the people that they elect. So I said, if they said, if we can have access to you, how will we find you? I said, we'll have a website and I'll do a town hall once a month so we can address all these issues together. I said, y'all not gonna elect me and expect me to solve everything. I said, we solve this together. Because one thing I am is a galvanizer. And when I was at that trance, the trace at in Mandeville, I'm telling these, a group of ladies and everything. And this lady, she said, well, I'm a Republican. I said, you're human too. So she said, you know what, you're right. I want you to come to my church. She said, I go to a mega church. I said, St. Tammany Parish? She said, yes. And I said, a mega church in St. Did y'all know they have a mega church in St. Tammany Parish? I did not know about that. She said, don't come to my church. It was a Saturday. She said, I go to the Church of the King. So she took my phone number. That lady called me, Miss Clara. She called me, are you going to church? Because I'm complicated if I should go. And I said, I'm going. She said, I'm going. Went to that church, my lip hit the floor. I'm looking at this church in the parking lot, and she's taking me around. Because you need to speak to such and such. You said you want to do this? Speak to such and such. The pastor has already called me. He said, I need to speak to you. I'm going to Belize, but I'll be back August 1st, and I want to talk to you about some of these issues that all these other people are talking to you about. Like I said, it was the telephone poles, the grass cutting. They are also talking about they need an urgent care in District 7, because I'm in Lacombe. They don't have an urgent care in Lacombe. You either have to go to Mandeville or go to Slidell. They were also talking about potholes, and they wanted to make sure that that I can do what some of the others couldn't do. Get these potholes filled, get the lights turned on. And one of the other issues that they came up with that I didn't think I'll be able to do anything about, they're upset about their cable bill. And a lot of these issues are the same thing that I was having a problem with, because all I have is Wi-Fi. And they told me it'll be $54.99, but that's all you want. That thing went up to almost $70. I said, wait a minute. They said, oh, you know the promotion. I said, they said nothing about a promotion. I said, all I wanted was Wi-Fi. I don't have cable. I didn't change the service. So a lot of the people that was talking to me about this issue, I was saying I had the same thing. So I said, let me see if I can do anything about that. So I called Spectrum, and I was talking to one of the ladies on the side. She said, you know what, Ms. McFarland, I think you have to come in. And the reason, and I said, I have to come in. You can't have. She said, Sarah, come in. I think why she wanted me to come in, because those phone calls are recorded. So she wanted to tell me off the record. She said, those people that's having a problem, she said, get a petition going. She said, get a petition going. You come down here, they'll go back. She said, because they're not supposed to go up on that. She said, but they're doing that. They're doing anything that they can possibly do to get away with it. So that's one thing that I want to make sure that I'm capable of doing, is being accessible and solving, as the lady put it, household, tabletop, kitchen sink issues. Thank you for your time. Anybody living in the phone besides Miss McElwain? Oh, this is Miss Brenda. Oh, I've been meeting talk with you. I was supposed to meet with you. So I'm glad I can meet you before the time. So Miss Brenda, I've been looking for you. All right. And I what's my classmate? I saw Nancy Nelson went to school with Jimmy Strickland back there. I see the Dan Magmorn I went to school with. I went to school with all the Randolph. It's like a family reunion.
All right, next on our agenda is the St. Tammany Parish Council candidate for District 14, Mr. Jamie Strickland.
You here is not to be biased for one or the other. We will stick to time.
Oh, First, I just want to thank the DPAC for our invitation.
It's indeed an honor to be with a lot of like-minded people. So, but my why for running for parish council is because I'm from here. My children live here. My grandchildren reside here. Well, one of my children live here, which is one of the things where they were talking about earlier, people deploying from here when they get the education, they get the college degree, mainly because of the money. They can go to Dallas. My nieces and nephews, most of them who've got their degrees, they're in Atlanta, they're in California, all of these other states. And to be honest, for the most of us, what do you really want to keep your kids here for? So we need to fight for things economically that we could keep our kids here, because a lot of people love Louisiana. We got the best of everything except the economy. We got the best food. We got all these things, but we need to do more to get jobs to keep our kids here. The smartest kids, the brains are always leaving. So when you get that, you're going to study decline. So I'm passionate about seeing Slidell, where I was born and raised. And before I moved away, I probably thought, well, this is just the best that it can be. I moved away. I lived in Georgia for 14 years. I saw so much progress that it excited me. But when I did great financially, economically, the jobs were plentiful. But my parents started aging, and that's what brought me back home to try to be around my mom and dad. So coming back home, I feel like we're about 30 years behind, compared to what it was in Atlanta. The economy, the people working together, the networking. And so I decided to, instead of complaining about the things that I wasn't seeing getting done, as far as education, the infrastructure, I decided to step up and try to participate and make my parish, my hometown better. And my children, my grandchildren, they're here. That's one of the passions. I want them to have a good life. I would love for them to stay in Slidell, because they are traveling right now, but Slidell has a lot of great potential. Louisiana does. You have so many things that I really observed by living in Georgia that I was like, wow, we have the best, things I took for granted here. We have the best food. We have some of the best weather, except it's a little different right now. But normally, like in Georgia, when it's cold all day. You can do stuff year round here. There's festivities, there's things that you can do constantly. Sportsmanship, fishing, hunting. You can be within salt water, because I was outside of Atlanta. You have to drive 5 hours to get into salt water there. We got all these things accessible to us, and there's a lot of money that comes to Louisiana. But where is it going? So the thing about it, I just feel that, I felt good about paying my taxes in Georgia, because I could see where my money was going. I could see the school systems that my kids were going to. I could see the education system. So I really didn't mind paying taxes. When I come home, I'm like, really, where's the money going? And now we're growing. Slidell is growing numbers with people. We're bringing a bunch of people in. But what about the things for the kids to do? We don't have a whole lot for the teenagers to do. And so if kids, we're bringing in all these houses and apartments and all, but if the kids don't have something to do, they're going to create something to do. So if we're not getting jobs for, within the next 5 or 10 years, if we don't make some big changes, we're going to be in trouble in Slidell. So I just feel that I want to work with everybody. I'm not a genius on doing it. I'm not going to sit here and promise that I'm going to do this. I'm going to do what's within my power to make a difference in the community. And I will work with, find the right-minded people that's involved with me. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just got to have the right people with you. And surrounding myself with people who has the knowledge and wisdom to do the things that I want to get done. And listen to the people, because the people are the ones, they know what they want. I'm a resident here, I know what I want, but the majority is getting people to work together. That's what we're really struggling with right now. So I just would like all y'all to vote, support, and I look forward to working with the Parish of St. Tammany. And I see that we got some great people that could be some leaders, and I'm looking forward to praying that they are going to be the leaders. I believe that. So any questions?
Strickland, and our final candidate is also running for St. Tammany Parish Council for District 14, Mr. Ron Randolph.
Somebody seemed to know me.
A good man.
Got one vote. Thank you all so much. Thank you for the Democratic Committee who allowed us the opportunity to come and not only communicate with you all, but to really get to express ourselves and to share with you our concerns, our interests, and also our goals for the people. My name is Ron Randolph, native Sardelian. Graduated Slidell High. I'm one of 13, 11, now 10. Graduated from Slidell High School. Graduated from Southern University in New Orleans. Also, University of Phoenix. And I also was able to attain my doctor's degree in theology. But I'm like this, and I want you all to know this. I'm like Mr. Wilson. I'm not your pastor. I'm not your priest. But I am and want to be and want to continue to be your leader, your representative, to do what's best for District 14. I have experience with the service that everyone would expect to see in a public leader, and that is serving people. I don't know if y'all remember this gentleman by the name of Stephen Stefanski. He was district councilman for his district forever. But even though he was Republican, he saw some worth in me even when I was a young guy. I was one of the first that was among the Environmental Services Commission. I was a commissioner at the age of 23 years old. That was a long time ago. I am kind of old. Then I was appointed to the Community Action Agency, all parish-wide affiliation. Then my predecessor, Thomas Jefferson Smith Jr., I know I said that, but Thomas Smith Jr., who retired in December, found favor in me and appointed me to, along with the council, appointed me to be a planning and zoning commissioner for District 14 and the parish. So since 2013, I've been representing the parish and addressing some of those concerns that Mr. McFarland was talking about. Not just the kitchen sink and the countertop, but also tree limbs, ditches, drainage, roads, those type of business, economic development. I don't know if you're aware of it, but this company who's been here since, well, for the last 5 years, BEC, right in Johnny Smith Industrial Park, they're expanding their capacity, their products, their services. And they just bought the portion of the old County Market project, County Market building, and they're now renovating it and plan to open it by the end of this year to open up 2 other layers of production of juices and water, and not only producing it, but also shipping and manufacturing it. And I got to really get to walk through the structure that they have right now in Johnny Smith Park. And believe it or not, 65% of the employees are all from St. Tammany Parish. And as they grow, they have committed to have those same numbers generated. So while we may not see a lot of economic development, while we may have some concerns that there's some narrow streets and narrow roads, and Mr. Wilson can tell you a lot of these streets and roads were really substandard, don't meet the width, and yet you got to have frontage, and all of those things have to come into place because a lot of these streets don't really have culverts. You have ditches. That requires service. That requires service. And you all know in St. Tammany Parish, for the last 3 elections, we have denied the renewal of any taxes to the parish. Y'all say, yes, we did. And because of that, as an accountant, sister, if your expenses exceed what your revenues or your income is, we don't all have to be accountants. We can just be mathematicians and parents. Somewhere, you're not going to end up in a good balance. You're going to come negative. So what we're dealing with right now on the parish level is trying to provide public service and accommodate our public citizens who vote for us for services that they need at a very limited budget. And that bothers me because I'm not a Republican, I'm a Democrat, but I believe in being frugal and also believe in making sure that that dollar stretch. I shined shoes for years at my dad's barbershop, so I know what a dime and a coin mean, and I know what it takes in order to break even. So, citizens, constituents, Democrats, Republicans, representatives, those that's present here, I'm asking you to consider all the odds and yet consider the positive so that District 14 could continue to be represented with vision, leadership, equity, and results of service. Thank you. Any questions? I get excited when y'all smiling.
My question I've got to ask my counsel. It seems to me like we have that growth is not regulated. Every time somebody wants to do something, they get a permit to do it. It's like a rubber stamp. There are a lot of things that they've been proposing for Lacombe that we don't want. And I'm curious as to your take on that.
Good question and a very real point of view. Louisiana, as it relates to Louisiana, St. Tammany Parish is the third largest growing parish in the state. St. Tammany Parish is like 10th in the state as far as the growth is concerned. What we have done, or what we're trying to do, we have come up with an ordinance where we can present and also get approved moratoriums in certain areas to kind of slow down. We can't stop it because growth is going to happen. Mr. Wilson talked about change. Change is going to come regardless. And people are going to come to St. Tammany because of the lifestyle, the way of living, education. That's what it's all about. So it's going to happen. So what we have done, we have come up with a process whereby we can actually have a moratorium established in certain areas where there's no growth, where there's no more new development. Now, we can't stop anything that's already in place, okay? But no other new development is to be implemented or can be implemented until that moratorium is done. Mm-hmm.
As far as communication, I think that, we need more visible communication, maybe using a local communication station where we can bring this information to the public. I know that the educational system have a channel that they use with their meetings. What about the information?
We have some constituents that already have in place a podcast. We can use podcasts. We can also do like my predecessor started doing, having, like Mr. McFarland said, monthly community meetings. Monthly community meetings at a designated place. And I know, I love to talk, I love to communicate. We can do that. That is the best means, other than social media. And a lot of people, believe it or not, don't do Facebook. They don't. But when it comes down to issues concerning your communities, neighborhoods, and y'all know how District 14 is drawn, it's all over the place. But we gotta preserve that. We have to preserve that and we have to take care of that. So community meetings, podcasts, and any type of newsletter, because we're gonna put together a committee and we're gonna have a communication committee where we're going to have a quarterly newsletter. Get away from the monthly. Y'all not gonna make me lie. The quarterly newsletter, so that we all can understand and be aware of what's going on in our communities.
What's the status of Amazon? I'm just curious.
And that's a good, curious question. And I would love to answer it, but it's out of my jurisdiction, okay? I do know that the building is ready to go. I do know that some months ago, after reading Wall Street and Money magazine and listening to the news, Amazon had some financial issues as it relate to warehousing and insurance problems that kind of set things back a little bit. I don't know all the details, but I do know that it's ready to go. And as soon as Amazon say, okay, we're fixed, it's gonna happen. Our mayor right now, who's really running for parish president, he's been working on that and he's on it. Chroma, he's on it. But good question.
Incentivize them to get it,
Yeah.
give them whatever they want.
Beautiful building,
Yes.
landscape, awesome. Okay.
I have a question. I live in Hutwood, and you go down Carroll Road, near causes a cut through that everybody passes on. They just repaved it, didn't make it any, I know it costs 100, 200,000, whatever it costs. They just repaved it, didn't make it any wider. Plus, when you cut from Bayou Liberty Road, it turns and there's a culvert there. They didn't even get close to the culvert, that you still have the same drop off that you had before. So that money to me, I'm just saying, it's a little wasted. Now, also, I'm talking about this is on everybody's claim, flood insurance, flood zones, insurance and everything.
Yes.
Recently, within the past 2 years, and I know Mr. Bill Baton had some things going on with the parish council, they were supposed to put off of Carroll Road, they were supposed to develop the neighborhood. Well, when you start developing neighborhoods, just like everywhere in Louisiana, southern coast of Louisiana, you start filling up with this, and then we're gonna push the water into every other neighborhood that's already existed there. So what really happens is that they say they're only gonna put 170 houses, but they end up gonna put 200 and cut down all the trees and take all the land, all the topsoil off of it, so there's no water to go anywhere. So 1 minute to 10 minutes.
Okay.
So those two, I know it's two issues, kind of still on, one about the flood and all of this. So I know that's kind of been put on off the table for the new subdivision, but has it, after they do these re-roading, repaving, does anybody come out and look at it? Is that how it's supposed to be? There's still the same drop off that's there at the same spot that was for, all they did was repave it. They didn't
Town hall meeting.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
what,
Town hall meeting right there.
I'm saying
and,
that.
and,
I was there at the council meeting.
what I'd like to do though, I need your number because we have some issues with Carroll Road. We had another development that was trying to come in, another developer trying to come in and squeeze in a little triangle area. Stop that. It's not just the road itself, but you're right. It's the width of it, it's the drainage even more so. So what I can tell you is that all construction has a final assessment where it's get inspected, and after the inspection is finalized, then it moves forward. I can't tell you specifically about that, honestly, but it's worth looking into, and I will. That's a part of my district. There is someone, since you're talking about Carroll Road, I'm sorry. Do I wait to? But there's something that's going on Carroll Road that I'm working on that wasn't necessarily been done correctly by the rules. And that's another story for another night. But do give me a call. Y'all, I'm accessible, I'm available. I am employed every day. I still work every day. but I also work even away from my office, okay? That's for you all. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Mr. Randolph. All right, well, this is very informative, don't you all think? Let's give our hand this. So at this time, I would like to acknowledge some of our employees, as I call them, our elected officials. So I do recognize Mary Jefferson. You all be nice to her. She has an R behind her name, so she's a friend.
Well, I hate to be the one to come between you and food. And I know y'all are waiting, so I'm gonna talk really, really quick. But I asked for a few minutes of your time because I have some important things to tell you, starting with this Monday, 6 o'clock, City Council building, auditorium. We're having a hurricane, and I say we. It can't be anything with the campaign, but it's the Division of Consumer Advocacy. Ron Henderson is coming from Baton Rouge to talk about hurricane preparedness. So I thought, now as we start hurricane season, it'd be really important for us to do that. Also, I wanted to say my district is District 90. I'm running for re-election. I've been in this seat 5 years. I've been working for the state rep, who is Mayor Cromer, and at the time he was the representative, I worked for him for 8 years. So I have experience for 13 years in this position. And my favorite thing and why I ran in the very first time is to continue to help the consumers, the citizens that we represent in District 90. And I'll continue to do that. You have my word for it. A lot of you sitting here tonight already know that I've done that. I want to say that I was the only Republican that voted for or against Senator Katrina Jackson. You know that, Mr. Wilson, Dr. Wilson, against her abortion bill, anti-abortion bill last session. And this session, I actually brought a bill that Ann Porter and the Committee of 100 Women brought to me and asked me to carry. They call it an abortion bill just because that's the medical term. In my opinion, it's a maternal health bill, and it has to do with miscarriages and stillbirths and women not having to carry dead babies and threaten their life. So obviously, none of those bills passed in the legislature. And so I thought really long and hard about if I wanted to continue to do this job, because it's very depressing when that sort of thing happens. But people are assuring me that I have to run and keep fighting the fight. And so that's one. The other is what you all have already brought up tonight also, the library. If any of you read the Slido Independent, and I hope you don't. I hope nobody's recording. Don't slander me for that. But I've been thinking up pretty good on that issue. And because I was on the committee in municipal that heard the bill they wanted, that Representative Hollis brought, was to get rid of any employee on, not even employee because they're not paid except for Kelly and Roca, but they wanted to be able to fire them, force the parish council to fire them for no cause. I don't care what job it is. You don't get rid of people for no cause, in my book. That's not how I think things should be. And so when the Senate bill came across, I really looked at it and felt like, actually Kelly told me that she helped write some of the things that the Attorney General has been putting out and that Senate bill put out. My opponent wants to say that he helped write Hollis's bill, which I'm glad he wants to claim that. And then also that he helped write the Senate bill. I don't know, he's not a representative, so I don't know how that works. But anyway, enough of that. I just ask for your support because guess what? I represent Democrats, Republicans, black, white, Vietnamese, it doesn't matter. You're all my constituents, and I hope that you'll continue to support me because I'll support you.
All right. It's her fault. Yes, no, but seriously, thank you all again so much for coming on this Thursday evening to hear our wonderful candidates. I'm excited about the future of each of our candidates. I'm looking forward to supporting you guys. I will be in contact. But again, feel free to come to our general meetings. They are the fourth Thursday of each month, and the third Thursday. Third Thursday of each month at 6:45, and they are held here at our headquarters. If you would like to fill one of the vacant districts, please see my co-chair over here, who is very versed on our map and can let you know if you are in one of the districts that are vacant, and we would love to have you. Anyone else that's out there that is embarking on their political journey, please feel free to reach out to us. We have trainees coming up. We have resources that are going to be available for you to assist you all in becoming as successful as possible. So again, thank you everybody for coming, and please help yourself. You don't want to be left off to all of the refreshments. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. And all of the candidates that were here tonight, would you please come up and take a picture with us?
That includes the candidates who are in the audience who did not speak.
Yes.
We want you guys in our pictures as
She's awesome. She was dancing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, when she came in. Yeah, just like a second.
Yeah, I was
Yeah, that's right.
So wonderful to meet you. I will.
How you doing? Good to meet you. Thank you. Good to meet you. Answer the call. How you doing? Doing well. Stay busy. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Oh, man, it's a blessing to be here. I hear that. Really hear that. I'm so sorry.
I know. I mean,
Believe me.
I know. I go to contact.
I just want to give you a heads up. Camera and mic. It'll be great. It's gonna be good. You're on fire, man.
In New York. So I transitioned back here to my mom. So during the day, I was having some sushi, and at night, I was trying to see my dog. That's his last name. Oh no, like a hot. He was like a junior high. Jim Davis in the seat down, he's not going to be elected. You know, and that's for some points, and I'm going to continue, but you know, he's want the library to share the East County Library. Different organizations. I'm trying to get a tight His first ad that he put out, he said, I'm going to give the police the tools they need to work with. You know, it's pathetic that they don't have the tools now to work with. Right, so I know they got mace, really tough, guns. So we'll get the police the tools. And then he said also, I'm going to make sure that the criminals are locked up and not the police. You see that We got one in Slidell, one in Thompson, one in Madisonville. They call it 1085 because it's on there. It's that script. You were first Baptist in that's a nice neighborhood. Our first Saturday, where they got the Pelican restaurant. Yeah. I didn't want to hear it because it's so quiet and Christian. Yeah. And I was like, thank you. Yeah. But, I'm an accountant. Yeah, I'm an accountant. Oh no, something he worked with kids, and he said they made some type of underwater robotic or something. He said he's at it's within my district of school.
Yeah, right there.
Wait a minute, I want to make sure. This is non-life standard